frame, I mean, obviously, last year we saw how in the postseason, not just for our game, but the importance of special teams all across the board. Special teams have always been important for years, but how much of an emphasis now with you kind of leading more of the special teams coordinator of this group of we got to get better in all phases in every way possible?
Yeah, no, it's cliche, but it's a third of the game. So, we brought in, your special teams are going to go as far as your specialist room. So we brought in Paul. We already feel good about the guys we have here, but I think as long as we can grow in that room, we're going to have an opportunity to continue to get better. And I think, the guys have been great this spring, this summer. We've done a ton of diving in, just self-scouting on us, on things that we can improve and change, just so when that time comes, we're able to take the next step in December.
I think most people understand when you lead the special teams unit, it's not that you just work with offense or defense. You get to see everybody on the team. So you get a unique perspective. What have you enjoyed just being able to see so many guys that do flow through your special teams units, but just as a team as a whole so far?
Yeah, you get a feel for the entire roster. So just evaluating offensive, defensively, what guys can do well. Wide receivers, like you see them perimeter block. How does that translate to frontline blocking, kickoff return? I think we have a great group of guys, offensively and defensively, a well-balanced group of guys that are committed to special teams. They've already shown great film. They're versatile. So I think when you got a roster as talented as ours that are bought into special teams, it makes our job a lot easier.
What do you believe will it take to be explosive in the return game? I don't think there's no question. There's been skill and talent for you guys to utilize. It's just getting it to translate in a game. What do you believe is the biggest piece to seeing that translate to where you guys can say that is a massive strength for us in the return game on kickoff and punt?
Obviously you have to have an explosive returner, but that returner's also got to be a guy who's going to communicate, a guy who can organize, be confident in him running the operation out there. But it all starts with your blocking, your frontline blocking. And so as soon as we get those group of guys develop throughout fall camp, find where they fit best on our front line, that's ultimately how you take the next step.
In terms of just consistency in the kicking game, I know that was an area of frustration last year. Just there were, again, good times where it flowed well and others where it was a little bit of a mystery. How do you work on that? Consistency just with practice and with reps, but where do you feel in terms of some of the guys you brought in, guys that you have, guys that are returning like Chase, where they've improved?
Yeah, I feel great about our room. Guys have had a really good spring, really good summer. So, Paul's come in, he's been great. He did both at Jewel. He's doing both right now. Chase is right there with him. They're both competing at a high level. Tanner's done a great job. He was here this summer. Snappers have done a good job, both returning. So Pedro, it's just about improving his consistency. Jace has taken huge strides this offseason. So as far as delivering in the game, we just got to put them in situations throughout this fall camp, which we do. We do a lot of situational football to put them in position. So when we get out there on Saturdays, it's just another day out there.
There aren't very many times where I feel like special teams portion of a practice can give some energy, especially on really hot days. But when you guys have done field goal kicking and moving it back, it's really brought a lot of juice. It seems like, no question, you guys are going to have some legs.
Yeah, well, it's easier to have juice when they're making long field goals, so that's a good thing. And that it's built that way, like our practice schedule. So for those guys to come over and rally around the field goal unit, rally around those guys. The specialists wait a long time kind of throughout practice, so it's a lot of indie time that builds to field goal PAT period for them. So I think with all the attention on them, just them having to lock in, focus on their technique, their fundamentals, it's only going to benefit us.
Look, Coach Hill has done a great job in terms of you got to turn the page, you got to move forward, which all of you as coaches do that too. You follow his lead. We talked about little nitty-gritty details, how if you would have done better in those nitty-gritty details, probably still play for at least another week last year, just a simple block on a field goal assignment at the end of the game. How do you, without being like focusing on how last year ended, but also remind the guys of, look, like what we're working on right now, it's going to add up and it's going to pay its dividends come December?
Yeah, I think, you have to evaluate yourself and your own film and see what we could do better in those situations. So we self scout ourselves, but I think all the guys individually have their own edge. We've talked about it plenty what happened in the fall, but we've moved forward. Now we're about stacking good days now, and so I think we've made those adjustments and what we think we can do better. I mean, in January and February, that already was through spring ball and summer OTA. So now it's just about us focusing in on those, whatever it's scheme changes, fundamentals, techniques. But that's about where we're at right now.